Hey there. So, there's a saying that basically goes that if you believe in something enough, you can make it so. Um, so, I guess in a lot of ways, that's the way it is with this struggle I'm having with my hip. It hurts. I mean, I shot a lot of video this week and have done a lot of work, and it's hurting, but not hurting as bad as it could, I guess. And I know other people out there that they go through a lot worse. So, soldiering on. I think this is 4 days out of 5, so we'll keep it going for a little while yet, a little longer. We're probably going to take a good chunk of the weekend off, though. So I got to get some yard work done, I guess. I think we're going to start out with the rattan today. And basically, as always, checking to see if I've got squishy bits. I probably do. Check my thrusting tip. I'm not using the thrusting tip for most of my drills. I am not primarily, I'm not one of those people that primarily depends on the thrusting tip, even though I have one on this sword. I very much work with the true edge and the false edge as much as I can. I usually do a lot of my stretches and warm up prior to actually coming out into the pit to work on the Pell or to go out and actually work in full kit. I usually take anywhere up to half an hour, 45 minutes, just to get everything stretched out and loose. And as you get older, that's really something you got to think about a lot. When you're younger, you may just sit there and say, yeah, I can just jump out of the car and go. And I definitely was one of those people that did that. And I really regret that now. I'm sure a lot of the damage I'm carrying is the result of me just going cold. I turn the end, it's basically the same, it's like putting the key in the ignition of your car and just pounding the gas pedal before you have any chance to warm the beast up and get the oil moving. It's the same thing with the human body. If you just make it go, you can cause all sorts of little problems that are going to come back to haunt you years and years later. So think about that when you're planning out how it is you want to do this. If you're just going to do this maybe once a month or whatever, okay, that's fine. But really, if you're going to be serious about it, take everything else into consideration. How you're going to stretch, how you're going to take care of your body, what are you going to do with all the blunt force trauma that you're going to face. You may just think of it as bruising for the first while, but every time you get those big hematomas, the big bruises on your legs and on your arms and that, there is going to be residual damage afterwards, scar tissue, lumps, bumps, swollen tendon sheaths, lots and lots and lots of damage. Strain on the ligaments, strain on the joints. I mentioned in a previous video that my kit, which I consider to be a light kit, the shield here that I carry, this little square one, this guy weighs about 13 pounds, right? I'm throwing around a 2.5 to 3 pound sword. I wear a 14-pound helmet. My legs, probably about another 10 pounds, a couple of pounds for the arms. All of this, the body armor. I wear a number of different suits, I know, but my tournament suits, it still weighs 14 pounds. So once you add all those things up, that's a considerable amount of weight that you are putting on your joints. So you got to think about that. Think about how it is you're carrying that around and what damage that in itself is doing. And then the maintenance on the joints for all the blows that you throw. Each one of these little videos that I've been doing, I think I am throwing probably between 150 and 300 blows. Just in a very short period of time. How that affects your shoulder, what is that doing to your elbow, what is that doing to your wrist, how is it affecting your hips, your lower back, all of these things you have to think about and do maintenance for. So when you are thinking about developing this as a hobby or as a sport or as a lifestyle, think about everything that goes with it. It's not just about putting on armor, coming out and hitting your friends. It's also about everything that goes with it and the maintenance. And you may feel that right now that's not really, doesn't seem that important. But when you get a few decades down the road, it is important, because that is going to impact your life. It is going to impact the lives of those around you that care about you. Long-term care is something that all of us are right now in, that have been around the SCA or other like organizations for most of our lives. We're an ongoing experiment in what this does to us. So take that in mind. Think about the maintenance of the machine. Not just the joy that we have when we're doing it, and not just the fact that this is very, very good for us physically, but also long term. What is that going to do to us down the road as far as our health and our health care ideas? What is it going to do to us psychologically when we hit that wall one day, like with me thinking about my hip, others looking at knee replacements, shoulder replacements, elbow replacements, these kind of things. Things that are going to stop us the day that we all have to hang this up for the last time, put the shield away or up on the wall so that we can just look up at it and remember things. How is that going to affect us psychologically when we have to stop? Nobody wants to stop. Be stopped. And maybe that's one of the walls that I'm up against right now. And along with you, I'm exploring it. I really believe now that as I reach this part of my fighting career, I'm really in the shadow of my twilight. And shadows that basically are going to get longer, and a twilight that is going to get darker. These are the waning years. So this is something we're exploring together. I'm hoping that I can teach as much as I can and share as much as I've learned, both as a student of this game and an enthusiast and an explorer. So enough talk for now. I'm going to start my 100 again, as always. I'm going to begin with the rattan waster and move forward. I'm just watching a great big eagle flying over my head right now. It's kind of cool. And then we'll move on to using the blade. I'm going to try to use the shield a little more aggressively today, just to give you an idea of what I do with this thing rather than just block. So again, addressing my Pel, getting into my preferred stance. I'm starting again with a sword side lead, which means my sword foot basically is pointing in towards the Pel. Shield side lead, it would be the other way around. I would have this foot pointing in towards the Pel, and my sword foot pointing in an angle off away from it. So I'm going to start with my shield leg today. Again, offsetting myself slightly from the Pel with my shoulder, so I'm actually square to where the threat would be implied. Lining up and engaging. I'm going to start out slow as always, making sure I get a feel for how my joints are working. In the society, we're not allowed to strike with the shield. We can press, we can push, we can bump the other opponent's shield with it. Cannot strike their body. But we can do that. We can also rest the shield and also put it into a place that basically would inhibit our opponent resting it. We just can't strike with it. Let me remember. Remember to get my body into this. That was a lot of arm there. Taking small steps today. Working my way around. Doesn't take a lot with the shield movements. Thing to remember is you've got it. You might as well use it. Just little taps, bumps. You can imagine that these are up against somebody's shield. And then slowing down. Check my breathing. Heart rate. Where is that sitting? And I'm keeping my feet moving slowly today. Listening to my body. Because one of the things I find happens when I'm doing this, pain, I tend to forget about it. The body is in a combat mode, so it tends to shift chemicals, and hormones and things, and makes you forget that, yeah, I've got a bone-on-bone situation in my hip. I'm not feeling it at the moment. Okay. Then you have to remember, at least for those of us that participate in SCA combat, this thing can hurt people. The shield is very much a weapon. And an old instructor I had outside of the SCA, this was actually doing when I was first getting involved with fighting with rebated steel, basically using true swords with rebated edges, is that the shield very much was to be considered something for offensive, aggressive use in an offensive manner. And the sword that I was carrying at that time, as he described it, was, this is really what you use in your moments of opportunity. And he proceeded to batter me around with the shield like I was a rag doll. And when you think about it, like I said, this shield weighs upwards of, 14 pounds, 13, in that area. Most of my shields weigh about that because they're all Baltic birch. If I throw that into somebody with a full punch, and that wasn't even a full punch, that's a lot of force. Alright, I could do a tremendous amount of damage with that edge. There goes Lord Dunlop down for the count. Dunlop is not light. So that's not something we want to do. So in the SCA, one of the greatest considerations we must have is the safety of our opponent, and therefore we must be mindful of what we're doing with this. So when you're first starting out, I would not suggest using your shield in an aggressive manner to begin with until you feel comfortable that you are in control and those around you have built up a trust in your ability. I'm going to switch over to the rebated one for a little bit. Now again, I will never do anything with a, I know this is starting to sound like a broken record, I'll never do anything with a rattan waster, wooden waster, that I couldn't do with a real steel blade. Getting my range, getting my position. Now, somebody was asking me, what did you mean by you would line up the same way against a left-handed, if you were a left-handed opponent? So the right switch, so this, here's my opponent, here's the threat. As a right-hander, I come out, and once I've got myself kind of where I'm happy, right, we get into a position, yeah, we're going to go, right, I'm going to make sure that my shoulders are square to where the threat is implied. Where is it coming from? Okay? His sword side is the sword, his weapon, whatever he's got over on this side, that is what I am considering to be the threat. Now, if he was left-handed, old school, very long time ago, two opponents would come out and they would face each other. One is left-handed, one is right-handed. Rather than changing my body position to face the threat, what would happen would be I would carry my shield across my body and put it out, so basically it is now in the lane of his attack. Now the big problem with that, of course, is that I'm all of a sudden hanging this 14-pound shield way, way out of my arm. So I'm not used to doing this, and that's not practical. It's throwing my entire body out. It's going to change the dynamic of how I'm working, how my body is moving. So, okay, right-hand opponent, left-hand opponent. If I'm right-handed against a left-handed opponent, I'm not going to shift my shield. I'm going to just do this. That's all I did. I just went square to his attack. I didn't move my shield. I just changed the set of my shoulders. I'm still facing my opponent, but now I have my shield and my defense shifted over without over-levering into his lanes of attack. Now if I'm left-handed, it's the same thing. Against a right-handed opponent, rather than carrying my shield across my body, hey, this hurts, right? I'm just simply going to do this. I'm going to shift. That's it. All I did was shift my shoulders, just slightly. Just changed my stance ever so much so that instead of sitting here like this, where he's going to come around easily through this opening, right, I've just moved that corner into that lane. And we'll talk more about that when we actually have two people lined up against each other. So anyway, that's an answer to that question, I hope. And again, if you have any other questions, please feel free to throw them into the comments. Okay. Lining up again. A little close. So anyway, I think that's about it for today. Hope you guys all enjoy your weekend. Just remember, this is one of the most amazing games in the world. And we're really privileged to be able to do it. So remember that secrets die with the secret keeper. So share what you learn. Till next time, guys, fight well.